call to order the meeting of the Ames Zoning Board of Adjustment for December 11th, 2024. The Zoning Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial board created by the City of Ames. The board's purpose is to decide on applications for special use permits, exceptions and variances to the zoning ordinance, applications for conditional use permits in the floodplain, requests for reasonable accommodation because of disability, and appeals of decisions of the zoning enforcement officer. As a board of the city, we welcome all testimony. We make our decisions based on the facts and evidence as allowed under city code and presented in open meeting. Testimony before the board must be given under oath or affirmation. If the proceedings become lengthy, we may ask that testimony be focused on new facts or evidence not already presented. We ask that you come to the microphone if you wish to speak so that your testimony will be audible and may be recorded. Before speaking, please complete an orange information card and hand it to the recording secretary. Those are located right outside the door. When you are testifying, please address your remarks to the board. We also ask that the proceedings be orderly. The Zoning Board of Adjustment is an independent volunteer board of citizens. We are not part of the city administration. We are served in our efforts this evening by Vicki Fieldmeyer, Assistant City Attorney, Kelly Diekman, Planning and Housing Coordinator, Justin Moore, City Planner, and Natalie Rickmeyer, Recording Secretary. The order of proceedings for each application will be as follows. First, an oral statement summarizing the issues and procedural steps will be presented by the staff. Second, testimony and evidence will be presented by the applicant. Third, testimony may be heard from any members of the audience who wish to speak in support or in opposition to the appeal. Next, the board will give the applicant and the city staff an opportunity to present concluding summaries and arguments. And finally, the board will discuss the issue and evidence and come to a decision. Our first item on the agenda tonight is to approve the meeting of the minutes from November 13th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from November 13th?
I'll move.
Moved by Whitehouse.
I'll second.
Second by Patton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, the minutes are approved. Our second item on the agenda is a public hearing on a request for a variance to single-family conservation overlay standards for a partially constructed new single-family home with no garage setback from the front facade and other variations to design features of section 29.1101 subsection 9 at 814 Wilson Avenue. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Justin Moore. I'm one of the planners in the planning department, and I'll be representing the case for the city tonight and going through our report. So just to recap, 814 Wilson Avenue, you see the location there shaded on the map. This is on the east side of Wilson, a few blocks to the north of here in the single family conservation overlay district. And the owner is represented by Keystone Equity Group. They're requesting this variance. The variance specifically is being requested for 4 key areas that we list out in your report there. They're requesting a variance for the garage setback, design feature, the roof pitch requirement, the porch design, and the foundation elevation requirement to the single family conservation overlay standards. Briefly, this was a permit that was reviewed by the city this past spring. City staff reviewed this permit. The permit was approved at the end of May. The review process at that time did not catch all of the design deficiencies on the proposed plan for the home, for the front facade design. It was discovered here later on, after the home was partially built, that there were issues that had not been designed properly. So city staff reached out to the owner to make them aware of that, and have had some discussions with them about the issue and some things that they could hopefully maybe try to do to correct it. We do outline in the report there are a few things that you'll see that they are proposing to do to correct the plan for the home, or I'm sorry, the facade rather. So this particular elevation exhibit you did receive in your report. What this shows you is the revised plan for the home. And as you'll see there on the front, particularly this portion right here, this shows you the revised design and the changes that the owner intends to make. I will show you real quick. We do have a current photo. So this photo here is how the home currently looks. So you'll notice between this and then the new elevation that the city's been provided, the owner is making changes to the window design issues, particularly on the top floor. Also, they will be shrinking the size of the garage door from a two-car garage to a single-car garage, and then putting a window in here right about this area where the mouse is. And then additionally, they will be making a small adjustment to the porch. They'll also be adding a beam here at the corner. So this just isn't finished yet. This is the current condition of the home right now. It's approximately 70% finished, approximately. So again, the issues that would remain uncorrected are the overall orientation of the garage in relation to the design standards, the roof pitch along the main run of the house, the majority of the roof there, and as well as the porch width. The porch does not extend fully across the front facade of the house. And then also the foundation elevation requirement, which will be at the proposal or the request in the variance is for 12 inches. The design standards require 18 inches. So with that, the applicant has their statement and their answers to the criteria of the variance application in there. And then we go through the standards in the report as you'll see there in the addendum. So to summarize our findings, we were able to find in favor of all but one of the findings, and that finding was the spirit of the ordinance. We were not able to find that met the criteria, and we do explain that in our report. With that in mind, we are not able to recommend support for a variance due to that standard not being met. So that's really the summary of it. I can go through those individually or in detail if you'd like. So I'm certainly able to do that.
When you're talking about spirit, the original intent of the the conservation overlay standards was to maintain the general characteristics of the homes in the neighborhood. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep. Yeah. So the spirit of the ordinance would anticipate that homes be built with the design standards being met.
Okay.
And we talked through that in there.
Right. So that's basically in an effort to avoid I don't know if this is termed in Ames, but McMansion issue that happens in other neighborhoods where somebody moves in and builds a house that is not.
It is a deliberate design based on the pattern of the neighborhood. That's how the single family conservation overlay was developed. So it expects a orientation where the porch and the other aesthetics with the front of the home are most prominent. The garage is either set back a certain distance behind that front facade or is rear loaded.
Yeah.
Front loaded is permitted here again, provided that they're set back with that certain orientation. So yeah, the pattern of the neighborhood expects that design.
So that would be similar to a common scheme of development.
Yep.
I think Vicki knows what I'm talking about. All right, because originally when I was looking at, also the one confusion I had that you clarified was the porch width. Actually, technically, I would look at it as the width of the house, so that's kind of the length actually. But because I was thinking 8 foot width deep, but wide. Okay,
Referring to the.
so that makes more sense now that I see this. All right. Any other questions for staff at this point in time? I think I've thought of another one. So in the consideration for the family conservation overlay, are there exterior design elements that are also required, such as certain siding or colors?
We do not have any material requirements, if that's what you're referring to, the
Yeah.
actual siding materials. Now, it is all design features of either windows or the front elevation in terms of relief features, again, porches, those types of features. We don't address actual materials, siding materials, for example.
Okay.
Do you know when the city adopted these ordinances?
So this has been in place, I believe, since the 1990s. You'll note there's a couple different sub-districts around here. This is single-family conservation overlay. This extends through a large portion of the area north of downtown. There's also a historic district, this is not in, which is nearby. But the single-family conservation overlay has been here for quite some time. And it was developed through an inventory of the neighborhood and the predominant home styles.
Could you tell me a little bit more about the error? It seems like the applicant's asking for variance and there's some concessions made, but maybe that there was an error on part. And can you tell us a little bit more about that? It seems like part of the variance request.
So when staff reviewed the permit this past spring, the permit did come to staff. And then through that review process, what is intended is that will assist the applicant in identifying if they're meeting, in this case, the design criteria.
Mm-hmm.
The design criteria in this case weren't being met. And basically the error was those errors in the design were not caught. And so there was a permit issued. They proceeded with construction, the owner did. And then we reached out to them later and informed them that they would need to stop because we discovered that it was issued in error. So they got to this point, as you see that in the photo, with not all the design features being correct. So through working with the owner, they are obviously, like we said, proposing to change some things. The things that they are not proposing to change are what they are requesting a variance for.
Under the factor that's criterion that staff considers a criteria not met, is there a certain among the 4 requests that is a bigger issue than the others?
I think that's hard to quantify because all of the criteria or all of the design criteria are listed together. They're all equally expected. I would say the things that you're probably seeing on this home that will jump out the most, the foremost would be the garage. The garage orientation is inverted completely from what it is supposed to be. Following that, then you probably have, if you have a keen eye, the main run of the roof, but then also the porch. The porch is just not prominent enough across the front. So it really presents, a sort of an appearance that when you looked at all the other homes, or at least the predominant pattern of the rest of the homes, you would not, this would stand out. You wouldn't recognize it against that pattern as to what would be expected.
All right. Any other questions at this time?
Yeah. Do you have an example of a home in this area that is in compliance so we can compare it?
I don't know that I have a photo immediately available. There are a number of homes nearby that are. In fact, if you go a block to the north of here, there are several that are in pretty, what we would consider to be the prototypical home that you would expect in the single family conservation overlay. I would probably have to street view that for you here. If you have the patience for that, I could certainly do it. But otherwise, if you've been up and down this street, particularly to the north of here, you'll notice quite a bit of the housing stock is what we would, there's exceptions obviously, but it's what we would expect in the district, in this overlay.
Still want him to look
Yeah.
visual. You're going to be visual
I'm a
on it?
visual person.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and bring up if you just Street View, Google Street View.
Oh, you got it.
I mean, think Cape Cod, think,
Okay.
Sure. So Kelly's going to help me with that. I'll take any other questions.
Yeah.
In the meantime, it might take a moment. So
farmhouse with a front porch.
Yeah, like a horse warehouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then not a front facing.
As Justin said, I'm going to try to pull something together. So the question is, what do
That's Staples.
typical
Maybe
homes
just-
of the neighborhood look like?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Can you just
Yep.
bring up that address and then?
Yeah, so I think that's relevant to the character question of
Right.
compatibility.
Because I think that's the issue mainly as far as spirit, is this too far or not?
Yeah.
Right, so it's a term that's going to be open to interpretation, and you're going to be applying the intent of the zone versus the
Right.
factors of the conditions of the neighborhood. So
Right.
you're right. So you're on the right track of trying to sort out what this is. So if you want to go ahead with any other questions for Justin, I'll pull up some stuff that looks like it
Okay.
might be relevant to the request.
I guess that leads to my next question. Are there any other homes that are like that in the area or anywhere close to being like that?
So I've been in the area. I think you might have a few other examples nearby that have been built over the years. Many years ago, prior to the overlay being established, so decades, you had some examples of things that were built, say in sort of the 60s through the 80s, or sometime in that period, where they're not that more traditional earlier in the century or craftsman style or anything like that. And some of them do have garages that are more prominent, and those were allowed to be built before the standards were in place. So I would say there's a few.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then are there been any that have been built since the standards have been put in place like that?
Since the standards have been put in place, not to my knowledge, no.
So off the top of my head, there's been 2 structures that have been built new in the last 10 years. There's a house on Clark about a block from here, and then there was a duplex built off of Duff probably 7 or 8 years ago that meet the standards. There's not a lot of tear down rebuilds in the area, not something you frequently see. So there's not really a pattern of how a modern house gets built from scratch. There's just a couple of examples.
While you're pulling this up, I'm still kind of hung up on this error. So let me try to restate what I am hearing. So there was a permit asked for, it was given a green light. The owner applicant started to build because those conditions had been looked at and given a green light. But then all of a sudden the error was realized and they said, no, hold on. You have to, now we've got an issue here that you need to correct. But they were given a green light earlier.
That is correct.
Okay.
So the issue is that staff, we're not authorized to allow deviations from the ordinance. So an error by staff does not negate the standards of the city. So it's really tough to accept, because if you're a private company, you can do what you need to make your customer happy, right? For us, we cannot undermine the ordinance and not respect the standards of the city council and the rest of the community. So that's what puts us in this position, where the applicant, in good faith, tried to get a permit from us. Their designer didn't identify the zone right. Our staff didn't correct it. And by the time we caught it, I think it said in the report, 70% complete before it was caught. I think it came to my attention earlier in the summer, or late in the summer, when it was under construction, and said, hey, how is that house in the overlay? And eventually I went and visited the block and said, oh, I did not believe so. So that's when we reached out to Mr. Albright and started to discuss what happened, what could be options to rectify that. And ultimately we ended up with the proposal for the variance with some modifications. So I'm just going to pick the block that's right next to the site. There's two houses that are probably, I mean, they're older homes, but here's two examples. You have one with obviously with a garage that is in the rear of the home, but it's a front-loaded property. The porch might not be 8 feet wide, but it has a porch at the front of the home. You can see the slope of the roof is quite a bit different. And then you have a real standard home here with clearly a 612 pitch roof. The porch takes up the whole lot, and their garage is in the rear of the home. So those are two very old example homes of the area. There's others in the area, but that's the intent with the roof pitch requirement and the porch. And then there is a requirement that a driveway, if it is off the street, is less than 12 feet, because there wasn't 2-car wide garages or driveways at the time that this neighborhood was built. So that's a 1-car driveway requirement. And that's partially what led to the proposal for reducing the garage door and coming down to the 1-car with driveway, was to try to respect that standard, even though the garage door was in front of the structure.
Is the ordinance on the garage that it face the alley, or that it not be in the front of the house?
Just has to be 18 feet back from the front of the house.
Okay.
So essentially the depth of a car is how far back from the front, of the house the garage door must be.
Interesting.
And that's not, there's not a lot of garages in that situation in the area. There's a couple, but usually they're much further back or they're off the alley. There's a few. Is there any other, do you want me to find any other examples of structures?
No, that kind of gives me an idea what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
And the historic district is also within the overlay. This block is not in the historic district. So if you're familiar with the historic district, there's a little bit larger, more ornate homes that also meet the criteria of the overlay.
Okay.
I think when just to kind of go through some of the factors that we put in the report, when we were looking at neighborhood compatibility, which was a finding we thought on its basic essence could be made, we were looking at the pattern of the block. So I think we identified for you how many not front loaded, but driveways off of the street versus the alley were in the area. Tried to give a little bit sense of the patterns. So you're trying to distinguish how can you make some of the findings and some of them were harder. So for us, for zoning, there's basic massing and orientation compatibility expectations. And we thought it met those to enough of a degree to make that finding. And then, as Justin said, for spirit, if you think that in this case is a higher bar of the true design intent, it doesn't quite get to that one. So I think that's where it's in front of you, is to decide exactly how that design intent applies in the spirit of the ordinance versus the general compatibility of a single family structure. Because that's where we're at, because it's really precise design issues. It's not a use variance. It's not it's not an encroachment issue. Some of the other things that are easier to probably decide what the intent or spirit is.
So I got a question. So I'm just trying to think, if the garage was taken off the front and put somewhere else, like lay in the back, and the porch extended, would that be more within the spirit of the overlay?
It could be, because I think Justin rightfully said of the features of the home, the most significant deficiency is the garage location.
Okay.
And I think the applicant will be happy to speak to that. We obviously looked at a lot of choices, how to come into compliance. And I think he has some comments about what happens if the garage isn't
Okay.
part of the structure. But so if you're saying, could we take the garage door off, reface the facade, embellish the porch, would it be in spirit then? It would probably be, I mean, I'm not going to say yes without seeing the design, but it would remove one of the larger obstacles. I don't think the roof pitch is the reason it's not meeting the spirit of the ordinance.
That would meet 2 of the requirements, 2 of the 4 of the specific issues that are here, which I don't remember what the fourth one was, but it was the garage, the porch, and the roof pitch, and one more.
Window orientation.
Oh, window.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think with the picture, and again, we're looking at the proposed home, not the current home. The current home would not in any way meet
Yep.
almost none of the design standards. So that's also what you have to kind of think about is the picture of the proposal versus what's on the ground.
Can you pull up the proposed elevation?
So,
Elevation was before the thing.
Yep.
Particularly concerned about that.
Yeah,
Or the roof pitch.
it's more of the,
There we go. And the porch is in there. 'Cause it looks like it's a house with a porch. We can discuss it later.
so top left is your
That's
front
what-
facade. So
oh, okay.
I'm just gonna
That's the change.
line it up a little bit so it doesn't have the
Is the window?
the ground there. So that would be your sidewalk view of the home. So they have addressed some of those features and made it more in line with some of the area around here.
The front porch is but it'll have a front porch out as well.
Yeah. So they would add a column. They would make there's some other parts there that aren't there.
Any more questions? I think we can come back around to, remember, we'll.
Mhm.
All right, if the applicant would like to address the board, you can approach the mic. And just give us your name and address.
Yeah, JD Albright, 1027 Norwood Court, on behalf of Keystone Equity Group.
And real
Okay.
quick, do you swear to tell the truth or?
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to first and foremost say I'm on behalf of Keystone Equity Group. We're a local home builder. Well, I should say a home builder based out of Des Moines, but we build all over central Iowa. We thought we acted in good faith when we submitted the building permit. And, first and foremost, that's historically what you do is, obtain a building permit. In saying that, when this was brought to our attention a couple months ago, we further thought we would act in good faith and understand that there was clearly errors made. And then there's what you have today is the compromise with the garage, the windows. The front porch isn't indicated on this, but you can see the column on the left corner, and then imagine a rail coming across that front porch to kind of tame that down a little bit too. One thing that was just brought up in the report as of late was the 18-inch exposed foundation. I'd like to look into that a little more. I'm only talking in terms of what's there now. We might be able to drop that grade a little bit around the house. And when we're talking about 6 inches, where in the report it indicates 12 inches. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. The report indicates 12 inches from bottom of siding to, say, existing grade. I think we probably could find the 6 inches around the property to lower that to make that compliant as far as that goes. One question that was just brought up was taking the garage off. If you go to the site plan, please, then we can look at why that just doesn't deem. See how the garage is actually built into the home. So there's where if it was just attached, let's just say on a side or a corner of the home where we could just remove it, side over it. But being that the house is, the garage, the house is built around the garage, it makes it awfully difficult to remove the garage and extend the front porch over.
I'm just gonna bring up the floor plan for you
Yeah,
so they can
please.
see the full thing.
So now you're looking at the main level floor plan and you have kitchen behind the garage. So we looked at it from a staff, we've had a couple different, I believe, beneficial meetings that we looked at it from all different angles. And if you looked at it as you put a wall across the front of the garage and then you come into like a rear load, they call it. Well, that wasn't feasible because there's a kitchen behind the garage and a dining room and then a living room. We also looked at it from the standpoint of putting a living room in the garage proposed. The only thing that we as the builder had apprehension on that is you have a dining room and a living room right there behind. So the curb appeal and the exterior facade might be kept by doing that, but we also have to think of a markability piece here. And I just didn't think it made sense to do a living room next to another living room for sake of the street appeal. So what we were willing to do though is the garage, the front porch, the windows that were, as you saw, what's there existing with their kind of transoms, which become popular today, switching those to a vertical to bring it in more to a closer compliancy, for lack of a better term. To bring it into full compliancy, now we're talking under the thought process of some pretty serious financial hardship at that point, just simply because of the plan that we just talked about, a house built around a garage, taking the garage off, making it all the mechanicals are done in the home. They didn't technically put a stop work order on it per se. They just encourage not to go any further so we don't go backwards. I haven't touched the home since we initially had met, just simply so we can get resolution as far as that goes.
Any questions for the applicant?
Do you look into turning the garage into a bedroom or something?
It's got 4 bedrooms on the second story.
Oh, okay.
So it's a 1,600 square foot. A lot of our expertise, like I said, I built all over central Iowa. We're working on some pretty sizable projects in Story County right now with, I believe it's, is it Brenda Dreyer or Becky Dreyer with the chamber. But nonetheless, we try to err on the side of affordability. Being affordable seems to be the need here as of late. In saying that, putting a bedroom on the master, or in the garage area, and having 4 upstairs, quite frankly, we're already making a sacrifice with a 1,600 plus square foot 2-story, and we're going to compromise down to a single car garage. You would think if a person has a 4-bedroom home, they're probably going to have 2 cars, and we're going to limit them down to 1. Now, one thing that we did do that your report reflects, and if we go back to that site plan, we can talk about this. The applicant has also agreed in the back of the property, again, to increase markability, but to put a 2-car garage pad back there in the back and have a driveway off of the alley. So we can get some additional off-street parking, and then down the road, a garage could be built, so we can have that 2-car configuration. The front, if it's anything like my house, I got 2 stalls full of snow blowers and lawnmowers and everything like that, and so that could be additional storage, which certainly is always necessary in a home. The existing 2-car, and so we've kind of tried to compromise, I guess was what, lack of a better word, and we've tried to keep the markability piece, figuring the home will need to be sold as well. Any other questions you have for me?
I'm good.
And like I said, thanks to the board and everybody for being here this evening. Really appreciate it, being that we're the only agenda item. So it's a cold night. Thanks for coming out. And like I said, we thought we were acting in good faith by submitting the building permit, and it was approved. The only stipulation that came back in our original building permit is we had represented, I believe, a 16-foot driveway, and they had brought it to our attention that we had to shrink that down to, I believe it was a 12-foot driveway, or for whatever they told us to get a smaller driveway, but still the same width as the 2-car garage. And so we changed that and thought we were off and running. That was at the original permitting phase. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. If there are any members of the public in the audience who wish to address the board, you may do so at this time. Good evening. Just identify yourself.
Matt Kinnis, 820 Wilson,
Okay.
right next door.
And do you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Is there any letters from the community, or am I the only person here that wants to?
I don't-
We received no written correspondence. I think a few people called in, but no one provided any written comments to Justin.
The calls were just inquiring what the details were.
I do appreciate the questions the board's asked tonight, and I appreciate the transparency that you guys offered and the error made by the city. It does seem like an error. It does seem like the builder did do his job and try to submit a permit. To be honest, I mean, it is completely against the area, right? The house doesn't look anything like the intended. I mean, if you go down the block and look at it, I mean, I don't want to use the word eyesore, but I mean, without using it, but it's not. I mean, you guys did a good. You built a nice building, and the intended adjustments will make it look a little more aesthetically appealing. It's just it's an unfortunate situation. I was, to be full disclosure, I actually reached out to the Federal National Mortgage Association and tried to buy the land myself, living next door. And I was told that a nonprofit or something like that would have first dibs at it. Is that not the case?
I'm just the builder.
Right.
Not the owner.
Okay.
I can't speak in terms of that.
Okay. We don't know if it's going to be a certain kind of house for a low income or for a habitat for humanity. Do we know any of that stuff yet?
We do know that just simply because of the price of the home. It's going to be probably marketed at, I would say, high 200s, low 300s.
Right.
Okay.
Is what's gonna be sold.
Sir, you have to address to us, and you.
Sorry about that.
We have questions. We can go back and ask him later.
Yeah, no.
I'll just clarify that right now. In the report, the information from the applicant is the target sales price was $360. That's what the hardship calculation took into consideration.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a Habitat for Humanity.
Right.
Although those are increasing anyway.
Not because of price, because they didn't build it.
Yeah.
Right. They didn't build it. Right.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult situation. So I don't really have it. I don't want to make a strong opinion against the developer who tried to do what they, at the same time, I don't know. I'm gonna leave it up to you guys on how you want to vote on this. You have any
Since-
questions of me?
Yeah, since you commented, seeing this plan, does that assuage some of your, I guess, critique of the facade?
I mean, it does look better. The consistent. I mean, I don't know if this helps, but I don't know. The consistent window design is a little less modern, a little more conventional, maybe a little more historical, maybe, for lack of a better word. And I hate to even penalize the guy to lose the 2-car garage. It's there, and I can see how it would be a very large inconvenience to try to remedy that with any kind of reasonable outcome. And I think the cement's already poured for the driveway, right?
No.
It's not. Oh, okay, that's good. That would be expensive to break up if you had to. Yeah, I know. Without actually seeing it, I think it probably looks better than it does right now.
Looks better now.
With that, I think that looks better than it is right now.
So the windows, obviously the porch design changed a little bit, and
Yeah, it helps.
Reduction.
That's my opinion. I'm trying to be fair and balanced.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Matt, I'm gonna need you to fill out one of these cards.
Oh, I thought you pointing to his. So they're located right outside the door.
They're on the stand.
Okay. All right. Any last comments from staff or questions to staff?
I think it would be helpful if you were talking about the term permits kind of loosely, if you explain to the board how, because we're talking about zoning issues with respect to variances, how zoning issues are reviewed in the permitting process, how the city handles that.
Sure. Yep. So in this particular overlay, because I've been involved in a couple reviews in this neighborhood before in past years, typically it will be through a building permit that will get applied for. And then the staff and the building department will come over or forward it to the planning department, knowing that this is in the single family conservation overlay. And we will then do our review. And we, having done that before, look, and they inform us, this is in this overlay. So then we pull out the standards and review the building plans against the standards. So that is how the sort of internally the process takes place, how it's triggered.
Just
So-
to add on to that, so
I know
planning
what you're
doesn't
gonna ask.
review single family homes in general.
Yeah.
It's only when they're referred by inspections. And the error was inspections did not identify the overlay applied to the property. It wasn't on the permit, and they did not
Okay.
identify that. But the second error, which I have to say, is what Mr. Albright said. They did get a comment that the driveway was too wide, yet it was also still too wide because it led to a 2-car garage that was not permissible as
Shouldn't have been
configured. So that was also a planning error there, because we looked at the driveway permit and we didn't look at the facade of the structure. We just looked at the width of the concrete. So that's an oversight on the planning side for the driveway permit. So you had two divisions miss it. Two different opportunities, at least related to the garage. If nothing else, we should have at least seen the garage and said that doesn't work. But that was missed by 2 different divisions.
Okay. Any questions then? All right. Any other last comments or from the applicant? Okay. I think this one requires discussion before a motion. Usually I do the motion first, but then discussion. So just to clarify, we're looking at the 4 variants, basically the variances on page 3 of the report.
Yep.
Let's skip the garage setback for now. The roof pitch, is that something that we're worried or think that it does not fit with the spirit, or as identified, the maintain the current quality and appearance of the neighborhood, the spirit, that in the findings that we're looking at, that we have an issue?
I think the roof pitch is minor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Enough.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
most people walking by would
All right.
think twice.
Yeah.
The porch
Yeah.
design, then the third one, which is only 40% instead of 50% of the front facade.
Well, they showed us a house
Yeah.
across the street that had a narrow porch, and
Yeah,
Kind of like that one.
right.
Yeah.
I think with the addition of the post,
Mhm.
and I think it looked good if it had a post on the right side too, but
We can I speak to that? Like I said, the one thing that's not indicated on here,
Is-
JD Albright again at Keystone. The one thing that's not indicated is we have a post on the left. We could very well put a post on the right, and probably would need to, and then connect it with a rail. What's not being identified this evening is the post, of course, that you brought up on the right, but then also connect it with a handrail
right.
to bring that more of a colonial type look
The
back to
character.
the facade. That's the only thing that's not represented here tonight, but we keep talking porch, and I wanted to identify that a little stronger, if you will, or tell you what it was going to be, or what's being proposed, excuse me.
all right. Just to clarify with staff, we can make requirements within these variances, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So we can make that a
If you
requirement.
need- Right, so if there's conditions to change the plan to justify a finding, that's allowed.
Okay.
Okay.
So would that be consensus there to have
Yeah, if we were to.
Yes.
posts and a railing?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So 2 posts on either side and a railing.
and a railing. And then that would make it similar to the one we saw before.
Right. Okay. Foundation elevation 18 or 12 instead of 18. I don't consider that an issue. I don't know that anybody driving by is going to notice
No.
the 6
No.
inches as far as
I don't know if
keeping with the character.
I don't know if anyone.
They're not, and with the porch, there's going to be a step. So honestly, even though they might be able to excavate down, I would not advocate for that, and
You want
as a necessity.
drainage. You want it go,
Step off the porch down to the.
yeah, you want it going away.
Yeah, there's going to be a step.
Mhm.
We have enough problems with water in basements and Ames. But, all right. Does this have a basement?
It does have a full basement.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Couldn't tell from the plan. So, all right.
Okay. So we're back to the garage.
So this leaves us back to the garage then.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm hung up on the garage.
Obviously, is a major factor because if you look at the character of the homes in the neighborhood and in the requirements of the overlay, basically it pretty much discourages front
Yep.
facing garages.
Yeah, it's
Now, with the changes that have been made, does that downplay it enough that
it makes it better, but
that it,
It's less, the garage is less prominent
yeah,
for
and-
me,
Yeah, and
especially with the brick.
I don't live in this neighborhood. I live in a neighborhood like this, and most of the garages that are detached are single car garages. So it
yeah.
does fit the character in that way. But
With the single car, though, it is more in keeping with probably
Yeah.
if they were to build one, it would be that way. So, I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
I know
just because it
traditionally
wasn't done, but there are homes with that. So,
that in a single car.
yeah.
that are
And
older.
definitely the changes with the window changes the whole look for me completely
Yeah.
because before with the transom window, that's definitely a modern thing that they wouldn't have.
right.
So the
Yeah.
windows and the porch changes do that. So, okay, so,
But a glass could be a potential option.
I'd agree. The windows make it
Yeah.
look more
But I mean, the-
traditional.
yeah, so, but the garage is what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I was just asking the applicant, just to clarify, on this drawing, it's currently a solid garage, steel garage door. If there were other elements of the design that you think changes the character of the garage
think it
door,
could,
can we
like a
combine
that's a
wooden.
detail.
barn door?
I'm not offering one because I don't know what that would be, but
I think,
changing the garage door, if that helps, is an option between the materiality that's shown here and what could be done.
kind of the garage door I'm thinking of that would make it more modern with the windows.
It might not fit, but again, we don't have historic character here. right?
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah.
Right.
you're
but-
trying to fit a contemporary structure into a pattern of traditional design.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It does not, it's not in the historic district. It does not have to have historic features.
right,
That's true.
right. It has to be more fitting than,
And that's why I don't think that's why I'm not suggesting a specific type of garage door that I think would make it better, and absolutely make a finding for you. If there was something that you thought could be investigated or do that, that's an option again as a condition that you could add to look at that more.
So I like your point. If you put a full glass potentially.
yeah,
Even if you put a
True.
barn door style on a lot of these home shows,
it's too
you're
modern.
causing attention to that garage. Because it's gonna be the focal point, because it's kind of the bling factor of the front of the front of the facade. It's gonna draw your eyes to it, I feel like.
Did they make those old cruddy wooden garage doors that we all fought with?
Yeah, my first thought was like the carriage door style. I just, without looking at it into greater depth, I don't know that fits.
That's the modern farmhouse look. That's not, yeah. I think that one's probably close to what we would probably require. So
Yeah.
I don't look at that as being
Yeah. I think
an
it was
issue.
fine the way it is.
Did you look into extending the porch around in front of that new window?
Yeah.
Oh, wrap around.
Yeah.
I
I
mean, it'd be
don't
more.
You'd have to
expensive.
extend the roof line though. That
That's,
doesn't
I was wondering that
Oh,
too.
okay.
And the only little bit of reservation I have on that is, and I don't know this, I'm just based off of experience. Then you have front yard setback. You know, if you start building close to the street. And depending on how the city of Ames looks at
Yeah.
that, from the street to the front porch, well, now I'm not far enough back from the street.
Yeah, I don't,
So I'm building towards.
Yeah.
I don't think that would help. The only other
No.
question I had is
Just to be clear, we allow porch encroachments in the front setback. So
Okay.
So we have it's a little, as we're still in discussion, right? So,
Yeah.
All right. No, that's fine.
We did discuss, could the porch come in front? We never discussed wrapping it around. So they did extend the eave further forward from the current picture. We did talk about, could you make the idea of the porch and the entry look like it's out in front of the garage with either the steps or the porch
Right.
coming out?
Yeah.
Or
Just
some
make it
other
more
kind of,
prominent.
hardscaping that makes it look like it's more of a entry.
Yeah, I think the
Recessed entry.
post and railing will do more than trying to as far as giving it that
I think,
traditional.
I guess, if you're in this discussion, I guess you're trying to decide, do other elements minimize the forwardness and
Yeah.
of the garage, right? So that's what we're trying to work through from the conversation I'm hearing from you. So there's possibly other things that can be done.
Yeah.
I think those are things that obviously their owner's willing to consider to get through this without having to remove a garage completely.
One other element, can we go back to the picture of the front elevation? So this shows that there would be, I assume, what is stonework in the front of the garage. But if you look in the houses in that area, they're not going to have that. That's more of a
Typically.
modern.
Typically, they don't. I think when we first talked to the applicant, we said stone, improves the look. It kind of helps get rid of some of the vinyl siding, which isn't a prohibited material.
Right.
It might be better as brick or some other kind of choice of stone. I think a modern kind of cultured stone probably is not a great choice. There's a little bit of variety in the area.
And the color is going to be key because we're trying to downplay it.
So if
I mean,
you were
it's
if you were to approve it, you can direct staff to kind of work through other material choices if
Yeah.
you wanted
Or
to.
eliminate the stone. That's an option too.
That's
The
true.
architect did that for us when we sent this plan back to our architect, and they actually added that to it.
I think just clapboard, you just have whatever would look like
Bring siding all the way down. to the
siding
same level
because,
And tame it down essentially,
right.
not build it up. And we have no problem, obviously,
Accent-
taking the
that
stone off.
demonstrates
But
like a gap in the siding.
Okay.
But it would just,
It demonstrates a gap in the siding where the garage door is, because the stone stops and then starts again. If it was just siding, I don't know if you'd notice as much that there's a garage door there.
right, it just is siding,
Yeah.
which is what all
Okay.
other houses would be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd
maybe
say
taking that
remove
out.
the-
Take that out.
And staff can evaluate that too. I think there's nothing that says, but I think that's our thought is to,
I think just to be clear, I think if you do choose to approve the variance, if you want latitude to be exercised by staff, that has to be identified in the approval. Otherwise, it's the
Okay.
plan approved on the screen.
right.
Just,
Okay.
just to be clear, if you don't make
Okay.
it part of the alternative or the motion, it is this.
I'm keeping
And
those.
is there a 2-car driveway there now?
There's no driveway. If we go to that existing shot, there's no driveway poured existing, so we're gonna
Okay, good.
actually pour.
The conforming
a
driveway.
single car driveway
Okay.
up to the proposed. See, that's just
Okay,
existing
okay.
grade
So
there.
they have to take
I
that
never
out.
poured the driveway. So we'll just take a single car, what I would deem a single car driveway up to the
Yeah.
single car
Okay.
door.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm glad.
That would
Glad
be
you
less
haven't poured
common.
anything. I was gonna say, we'd have to take it out.
Okay. All right.
But
Any
if you
other-
look at that compared to what's being proposed, and we're going back and forth enough times, that compared to what's being proposed,
Yep.
I think we're getting somewhere in my mind
Mhm.
in terms of the direction.
I like the big
Okay.
windows.
So let's go to the criteria itself that, we're looking at, which is,
On page 3 still?
yeah.
Okay.
So this overlay, it says in the middle, is meant to maintain the general quality and appearance of the neighborhood, promote a more cohesive look to the neighborhood, recognize the neighborhood characters as major part of the city's identity and positive image, promote local design qualities, stabilize and improve property values, reduce conflicts between new construction and existing homes. So do we feel the current design, I think even taking and I will clarify this from what is pictured here, adding a post to the right side of the porch and adding railing and then removing the stonework to the front of the garage facade, do we feel that that would be in keeping with the spirit now of the overlay of the neighborhood?
I think it's closer. I'm trying to decide if it's close enough.
I mean,
It's
one of the
like-
things to look at general quality and appearance and to promote a more cohesive look. Well, there's not,
It's not going to be cohesive.
even the neighborhood's not cohesive because you have
No, it's
different
not.
houses of different types. It's
Right.
the main issue is the garage. And
I will say, I mean,
other than telling them to totally remove the garage, which we weren't really, I don't think, based on discussion, prepared to do, then we have to
No.
minimize and make it as cohesive as possible.
I am just torn because having a front-facing garage so close to the street functionally is not cohesive with the rest of the neighborhood. And
Well, they're allowed. It's just not set back the way it's supposed to be.
Right. That's what I
18
mean.
feet, yeah.
like, if you're going to have a garage like this,
It was,
then not only will you park a garage in it, you'll also park a car
right,
in front of
in the
it.
front of the house.
And there's not going to be a car in front of someone's house in
Well,
this neighborhood
we
unless it's
can-
on the street.
We can actually limit that too.
We can?
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, staff. We can say they can't park in the driveway, correct?
No,
We can't
Oh.
you can't.
because they have
I
the,
can't enforce that.
Yeah, that's fair.
okay.
Okay.
That's why I don't want to say
Yeah,
something that's not enforceable.
Yeah, I don't.
That's going
I
to be something that's going to come
ZBA
back in
can't
10 years.
create an unenforceable
So you said I can't
operating.
No,
park
I
in
get
my
that.
driveway.
Yeah.
So if the driveway exists, they would be allowed to park on it.
Well, we can do it, but you just can't force it.
But then I have to enforce it if someone complains, and I'm
Thinking
not
of it.
sure how to do that.
I think we're
So, I mean, we're kind of stuck with that. So, I mean, if we look at the other factors, though, recognize the neighborhood's characteristics makes you part of the city, identity, and positive image. I think for the most part, it's trying to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apart from I mean, we have to. I'm sorry, I'm going to take the error into account a little bit.
yeah,
Oops.
Yeah.
I wasn't. That's
Stabilize,
Actually,
improve
two
property
errors.
values. I think it does that. Reduce conflicts between new construction and existing homes. I think there was a good attempt to do that. It's just,
well, what kind of is it like?
and we're doing it now.
Is it aesthetic conflict or functional conflict?
Yeah,
Because I
I
don't.
think it's either one.
There's like a potential functional conflict that could be persuaded into this, but like not really. And the aesthetic
There's still-
conflict, we're
There's
trying
still
to-
driveways in the front, just not cars. So you can still park on the street, which is annoying too. But anyway, that's such as it is.
I think I'm good.
Generate quality, quality and appearance of the neighborhood. I think with the changes, it's keeping with general because general is very vague. So I think among the four, obviously, we've identified the garage as being the biggest issue.
Mhm.
If we can minimize the obtrusiveness of it.
Could we ask that they paint the garage the same color as the siding?
Oh, the door?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The home is actually white. and
So the door is
white.
going to be white. That's
To
the
be white.
cheapest option anyway.
Okay.
So
And then that would minimize the door.
is the trim white or is it black?
I believe the trim was black.
Yeah, that should be
Okay.
white.
Yeah, well, at least around
Yeah.
the garage,
Just
have it be
Yeah.
probably
be
in
white.
White.
the black trim is that tendency towards that
That
modern
pops.
farmhouse.
Yeah.
And it accents the presence of a garage.
Yeah.
We're trying to minimize.
We're gonna have to reframe the garage. If you guys
Okay.
wanted to put don't trim out the
The garage and
Because we're taking the siding off, taking the stone off.
I don't know what
add
it
the
looks
siding,
like.
and then just not have that colored band board around the garage, trying to further pull away from the aesthetics of the
Yeah.
garage.
Yep.
okay.
Black around the garage, keep
Yeah.
the, I mean,
Okay.
I
think
would
if-
say, I think, I mean, it's a white garage, but it's not the same white. So painting the garage to match.
I have no problem painting the
Match
garage
the
to
house
the
that-
house.
Okay.
So that's doable.
That's-
That's doable.
Yeah.
I would say you should, this is my preference, still put trim around the garage.
Yeah.
door, But don't paint it a different color.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
not-
That's fine.
not black.
I
think we
have
can-
no problem painting it to match. the
Compliance.
siding.
Yeah.
Okay.
If
Yep,
the
yep.
siding and the trim and the garage door all match,
Okay.
I would be satisfied.
All right.
Do you want to make a motion since you have to write all that down?
I will.
I feel like I might miss
Clarify.
something.
I don't-
For the motion, can I ask for one clarification on the stone component? I wasn't sure where this motion might land. I agree the stone doesn't fit.
Yeah, take that off.
There are brick elements. There are exposed foundation elements that are common. That's part of that 18-inch foundation part. If you were to remove the stone, I would like the opportunity to explore how brick with as a base to the porch columns or as a small element of foundational brick, not a wainscot height like this. This isn't common in this area, but
Right.
some of that foundational elements is not, and it may or may not make sense with the final design, but I would want to explore that.
Yeah, like you said brick bases to those porch columns?
If you're going to do brick, you would want it, right? If you're going to have,
Yeah,
if you have consistent design features of brick in one part and the second part, then it doesn't stick out like this stone does, right?
Right.
I think
So, and it's not, I'm not saying bring it up as high either. That's a more contemporary
Yeah,
way to
right.
do a stone. So it's not that there isn't hard surface materials, it's just brick or it's cement as what you see on other parts. So it's something worth exploring.
Yeah.
Maybe all siding is still the best answer. I would just want to, since we had a chance to evaluate that, we didn't approach it that way. I would want to look at that if that was the final decision.
So we're gonna say staff evaluate
So I think you're saying remove the stone,
remove the stone.
allow for siding and potentially allow for staff to require brick accent
Okay, brick accent.
if found compatible with the style, the final design elements of the
Okay.
home, basically.
Okay.
I think we need to be very careful about making sure that we step through each of the criteria to make
Yeah.
sure that a
Yeah.
variance is something that you want to grant.
Right.
You might have some like conditions attached to that,
Yeah.
but we need to make sure that we step through the criteria.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, I'll do that and I'll put easiest to hardest. I'll go through them. All right. So
I agree we need to do that. Can I hear the whole list of changes just to make sure that, again, I understand what's
so
going
the
to come from somebody before
Yeah.
we make the findings?
So the roof pitch, no change to what the applicant has requested. The foundation elevation section, no change to what the applicant has accepted. To the porch design, in addition to what the applicant has suggested, we also require that there be posts on both the left and right side of the porch with
Railings.
railing
Okay.
installed. So
Bells.
that would be the addition to the porch design, in addition to what the applicant has suggested. And
Okay.
then as far as the garage setback, it would be similar to what the applicant has suggested, except in reducing the 2-car garage down to a 1-car garage, but also then instead remove the stone element to the front garage facade and allow staff to evaluate whether or not there should be some other hard surface material that could be used in conjunction with siding. In addition, the garage door and trim for the garage door would match the siding. Like those are the two
And the garage
garages on the garage.
by painting the garage door.
Yeah, paint the garage door to match the siding.
And then one more that you didn't mention, but I believe it's a condition in there, is the vertical windows.
Oh, yep,
Oh,
yep.
Yep. So they're just part of the design. You would accept the windows as proposed.
Oh, yeah,
No
windows as
changes, right.
proposed.
well, I didn't, that wasn't part of the variance, was it?
Well, I think the only
They-
window
they-
that doesn't comply is the,
Yeah. So they're not
Actual
getting,
window.
they're not
Yeah.
literally getting a variance for the windows. the proposal complies with the code.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're
Okay.
just restating that this design requires you're not getting a window variance, basically.
Right. Not getting
Okay.
window variance.
No,
Those-
you're
Right.
in compliance with that window design.
Okay.
All right. Does that cover all the bases? All right.
So those are the things I wanted to hear to make sure I understood where you were.
Okay. All right.
Then I think as Vicky said, I think so right now you have one
Mhm.
negative finding by
Mhm.
staff. At a
Okay.
minimum, that one would
Change
have to
that.
be restated if you were to approve it and find
Right.
evidence to
Take that
make that finding in the affirmative.
I don't think I've heard us step through any of the criteria to determine whether they're met, right? So I think you just need to step through the criteria.
Okay.
You're the ones
Okay.
that grant the variance or not.
Right.
And it can be as simple as saying that you accept the staff finding on that, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you
For the
go.
ones that are met.
I'm just
Right.
getting
Okay.
reconnoitered
That's
here.
fine.
Okay. And then we have to change the other one.
Okay.
I think we
I'm
start
trying to find where it starts
It
exactly.
starts, I think it starts here,
Okay.
here. It says addendum. I think that's where it starts.
All right. So I'd
For
like to
the
make a motion that we go with
findings.
alternative number 2. The zoning board of adjustment approves the variance with conditions of changes to the home. We will outline those changes second by making specific findings of facts consistently with the request of all variance criteria. The first criteria being okay, the granting of the variance shall not be contrary to the public interest. On that, we agree with the staff. Second criteria, that without granting of the variance and due to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship. And we agree with the staff's findings on that criteria. On spirit, the third criteria, the spirit of the ordinance shall be observed even with the variance is granted. We disagree with staff on that based on the following findings. Number one, that the windows will be changed according to the current plan that has been provided by the applicant. Second, that the foundation elevation of 12 inches rather than the 18 inches required is sufficient compliance. Third, that the roof pitch consideration being 512 instead of 612 is substantially complies with that and is not a violation of the spirit. That the porch design as submitted by the applicant with the changes, including addition of 2 posts, one on the left and right side with a joining railing. The proposed porch there does fit now the standard of or design within the spirit. And the garage setback section with the changes that have been proposed, including removal of the stone material from the proposed alterations by the builder and requirement that the garage door, with the opportunity for the staff to explore the possibility of brick or other hard materials in its place that would be fitting and conforming with the neighborhood, and also that the garage door would be painted and the trim around it painted to match the siding of the home to make it less prominent. with those changes to the variance, we believe that the proposal will be fitting or fit within the spirit of the ordinance. And finally, substantial justice shall be done as a result of granting the variance. We agree with the staff findings of that. Do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Second by Whitehouse. Roll call vote.
Hang on.
It was a mouthful.
McDaniel,
I move to approve as well.
aye. Okay. Schneider,
Aye.
Patton,
Aye.
Whitehouse.
Aye.
Okay, the motion has passed. The variance has been granted. Those wishing to appeal the decision may do so to a court of record within 30 days after the filing of this decision. As there are no other items on the agenda, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Okay.
He's
McDaniel,
got a second.
second by Whitehouse. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed. We are adjourned. Thank you all.